Hello, my most amazing artists, and welcome back to week 2 of our Mary Blair Castles project. Last week, we should have learned all about the artist Mary Blair. She was an artist who worked for Disney, and she came up with a lot of the design concepts behind older Disney movies. She also created the design concept behind the amusement ride, It's a Small World, which you can watch in our Nearpod presentation. So if you haven't already, definitely go check out our presentation for today so you can learn all about the artist Mary Blair. Also, last week, we started creating our castles inspired by Mary Blair, and we are creating a coleograph for this project. That is a raised surface that we can actually create a rubbing from later on. And all we did was we started cutting out different geometric shapes for the buildings and for the rooftops. Today, we're going to cut out some more geometric shapes for the details on our buildings. And to create those smaller details, we are just going to need some more chipboard. It doesn't have to be the same kind of chipboard that you used last time. It could be a different box if you happen to run out. And this was a Lucky Charms box, so I got me some more chipboard. And we are not going to be gluing these shapes down just yet. We're going to do that next week because it takes a little while to cut out all of your different shapes. So we need to make a good collection of shapes today so that next week we can glue them onto our coleograph. And for our little chipboard shapes on our materials list, I also put Ziploc bag on there just so that we have a nice safe place for our shapes to stay until we need them next week. You might possibly need a pencil if you want to draw out your shapes first, and of course we will also need a pair of scissors. I'm super excited to cut out some more geometric shapes with you today, but before we get started, let's go ahead and say our class mantra all together on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. My mantra: I am positive, I am creative, I am mindful, I am amazing, I am an artist. Alright guys, let's go ahead and get started. Alright guys, so here is where we left off last week. We just have our buildings and our rooftops. Now we need to add smaller details to our buildings. And the way we're going to do that is we're just going to take any extra chipboard that we have left over from whatever box that we used. If you ran out, then you can just try to find another box to cut up. Remember, we are just using a cereal box for this one, but you can use really any kind of box that you have at home. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start cutting out shapes. And remember, last time we talked about how if you want to draw your shapes out first, then you can do that. Totally up to you. We are going to be using a geometric shape still, and those are shapes that either have a name, so we know this is a geometric shape because it has a name, and the name of this shape is heart. What about this shape? This shape doesn't have a name. I don't know what this shape would be called, but we can still tell that it's geometric because if I were to draw an imaginary line down the center, I would see that the left side is the same as the right side. So if you're unsure if a shape is geometric or not, you can always draw an imaginary line down the center to check to see if each side is the same. So if you want, you can draw your shapes first and then cut them out, or you can just freehand. I think for this one, I'm gonna go ahead and draw my shapes first and then cut them out, just to have a better idea of what kinds of shapes I want to use. So for this first part, I'm just going to draw a variety of shapes, and we don't want them to be too big because remember, we are doing smaller details on these buildings, and if our shapes are too big, then they might just cover up our building, and that's not what we want. So this time we are going to create some smaller shapes to go on top of our building. And while you're thinking of shapes, it's probably a good idea to think back to Mary Blair's artwork. Let's think of some other shapes that she used. I have a semicircle, I got a diamond, this random shape that I don't know what it is, but it is geometric. I have a heart. That heart might be a little bit too big. You could also do a trapezoid, which is kind of like a squished down rectangle with 2 angled sides. She also used this shape a lot, which I don't know what to call it, but I know it's geometric, so I can use it. Sometimes she would use a pretty flower shape. It's kind of like the shape of a tulip. So just try to think of as many different shapes that you possibly can. You can draw the same of one shape if you want to. So I'm going to draw a bunch of triangles because I think I want to create a sun or something on to my buildings. So you guys can get really creative with what kinds of shapes you use and what you make your shapes into. Enough shapes for now. So after you draw a variety of different geometric shapes, then we're going to cut them out. And of course, while we're cutting our shapes out, let us please remember to use our best scissor safety because some of these shapes are pretty small, so we need to be extra careful while we're cutting. Remember to cut, I just have one hand holding my scissors. That's my right hand because I'm right-handed. Whatever hand you write with, that's the hand you're going to want to hold your scissors with. In my other hand, the hand that's not cutting, I like to call my lazy hand, he is just going to rotate this chipboard around to show my scissors where to cut. The only thing my scissors are doing are opening and closing. They're not moving around, and I'm always cutting away from myself, never towards myself, because that is very dangerous, my friends. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut out all of these shapes, and I'll be right back to show you the next step. So I just finished cutting out all of these different beautiful geometric shapes, and as you can see, I have a lot of them. So today I just want us to focus on cutting out as many geometric shapes as possible. We need to save them for next week because we are going to start creating our composition where we arrange these shapes onto our buildings, and then we're going to glue them down, and then we will be ready to do our rubbing, which is the most exciting part of this project. So this week, please focus on getting as many geometric shapes cut out as possible. Try creating your own shapes. Create a new shape that maybe no one has ever seen before. There are so many possibilities on the different kinds of shapes that you can create. So go ahead, cut all your geometric shapes out of some chipboard, and then we are going to keep it safe and sound. I'm just going to keep mine in a little Ziploc bag, and I'll hold on to it next week for whenever we arrange our composition and glue these shapes down onto our coleograph. I hope you guys have a lot of fun cutting out and creating brand new geometric shapes, maybe shapes that no one has ever seen before. I can't wait to see what you come up with. I know they're going to be amazing because you guys are amazing. All right, I'll see you guys next time. Bye!